So welcome to the first scheduled meeting of the Committee on Health and Human Services. We have a oversight responsibility for the department. We hear bills in our areas of responsibility, and we do everything we can to make sure the public feels like they've had a chance to contribute to the conversation about the bills. That's our major assignment. Before we get started today, I just wanted to lay out a couple things. First off, we've established a quorum. All of us are here today. That won't always be the case because other people will sometimes people will have to be in competing meetings or be called away for one reason or another. Let's get started by introducing ourselves around the virtual horseshoe. And I'd ask Representative Griffin to start if she would. Unmuting yourself and then telling us who you are and why you're here and a little bit about yourself. You're still on mute.
Yeah, okay, I think I got it. Okay, so hi, good morning. My name is Abigail Griffin and I represent House District 102, which is Glenburn, Levant, and Kenduskeag. To just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I'm a nana. And my husband and I have been married for 20 years and we blended our families together. We have 5 adult children and we have 6 grandchildren. My stepsons, Joshua and Justin, are in the military, Joshua in the Army Guard and Justin in the Army. I'm a retired teacher, but I did have an opportunity this fall to teach in Glenburn, where I taught for 26 years. I taught kindergarten, and just kind of putting a plug in for our teachers and our parents. We really need to keep them in prayer. They have quite the job, lots of hard work. In my spare time, I read, I garden, and I ride my 2 horses. And this is my 2nd term, so I'm very glad to be back on the Health and Human Services Committee and looking forward to working with you all and looking forward to working for the people of Maine. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Connor, would you go next?
Good morning. My name is Representative John Connor. I represent District 58 in part of Lewiston. I am obviously a freshman and new to this. I am a retired Air Force active duty member. I left the state of Maine in '95 and returned in 2016. And I'm also serving on the Health Coverage Insurance and Financial Services Committee. So I'll be one of those competing committee members that I'll be bouncing back and forth. So I look forward to learning a lot and helping out the people here in Lewiston the best I can. Thank you.
Representative Craven.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Margaret Craven, and I represent District 59, which is part of Lewiston. And I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, Representative Connor. I'm hoping that we'll have lots of things in common to work towards. This is my 15th year serving in the legislature, and I had a 4-year hiatus. And I have 2 sons and 3 grandchildren, and I've worked in human services my whole life. And I am an Irish immigrant, and so I bring a different perspective sometimes. So, and I want to welcome my intern from Bates. Her name is Sasha Fieldberg, and she'll be with us. I don't know how long, but as long as she would like to be with us. So we're delighted to be able to include her and hope that she finds this committee, engaging and enriching and enjoyable. So welcome.
Welcome, Sasha. And Representative Madigan.
Hi there. I'm Representative Colleen Madigan. I represent House District 110, which is about half of Waterville and a little bit of Oakland. I'm just starting my 3rd term here in the House of Representatives, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I've worked for 30 years or more in mental health and healthcare. Married, have a great husband. His son is expecting, and his wife are expecting a baby. So soon I'm going to be like a step nana, which is kind of exciting. And I have a pretty awesome cat.
So we'll go next to Representative Zager.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Zager. I'm a first-term representative from Portland, Navy veteran for 11 years. Then I had a career change, went to medical school, became a family physician, married 2 daughters. We have a couple of dogs, and now we have 6 fish. So good to see everyone.
Representative Lemelin.
Good morning. I'm Michael Lemlin. I represent Chelsea, Jefferson, Whitefield, and half of Noblesboro. I'm a first-term representative. I'm married with 3 children, and I used to be an airline pilot. I stopped flying 24 years ago for my son. I have a son who has multiple disabilities and he's deaf. I've been his advocate for 24 years on a federal level and on a state level. That's why I'm very glad to be on the Health and Human Services Committee because of my 24 years experience there. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Stover.
Good morning. My name is Holly Stover and I represent House District 89. This is the beginning of my 2nd term. I've also served on HHS previously. In my career history, I worked in state government for 2.5 decades in the Department of Health and Human Services, and previously before the merger in the other side, which was mental health, developmental disabilities, and substance abuse. I have a wide array of background in most of what we cover. And I did a little bit of everything while I was there. I currently work for 2 nonprofits, opened a dental clinic, Lincoln County Dental, this year. Despite COVID and everything else that could go wrong, we went ahead and just did it. And I also am the program director for an addiction outreach program and work with the Boothbay Harbor Police Department, working with opiate addicts and their families. And when I don't do that, I'm a legislator. I represent the towns of Boothbay, Boothbay Harbor, Southport Edgecombe, Westport Island, and part of South Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Baldacci. You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here with everyone. This is my first term as well. I previously was elected 4 times to the Bangor City Council, which total 12 years on the City Council, and served twice as mayor of Bangor. I have been practicing law. I went to the University of Maine in Orono, and I went to the University of Maine School of Law in Portland. I have been practicing law here in Bangor area for 29 years. I have a general practice. I have I have 2 kids who are 20 and 21 and who like to tell their dad exactly what he needs to know or should know. And I'm sure others are in that situation as well. They're in college. Caroline is going to Wellesley off online. Olivia is going to Hunter College in New York. But she's also, they're both home doing this, so it's kind of an adjustment for all of us, as I'm sure it is for you guys. I worked in the restaurant business before I went to law school. I spent 10 years cooking and waiting on tables and doing all kinds of stuff in a family-owned small business. So that certainly gives me a lot of practical experience, if you will. I look forward to working on the Health and Human Services Committee. Bangor has a large healthcare sector with Northern Light, St. Joe's, and a number of medical professional buildings and services. So I look forward to that. And I look forward to working with Representative Griffin as well on local issues that's important to our region. Glenburn's like a stone's throw from right here. So we're all in the same boat. But I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Perry.
Thank you. I finally got on. Had a little computer problem. So I'm Representative Perry. I live in Calais and I represent House District 140, which includes Indian Township, Baileyville, Bering, Calais, Charlotte, Robbinston, Perry, Pembroke, and Pleasant Point. And I'm a family nurse practitioner, retired. I also am in my 7th term after having taken a break after the first 4 and coming in again. I have in previous iterations worked as chair of Health and Human Services and chair of Insurance and Financial Services in my last set of terms. I'm also on the board of Northern Light Health and the Regional Medical Center at Lubec, which is an FQHC in my free time, and also a trustee of the Calais Regional Hospital.
Thank you. Representative Javner.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kathy Javner, and I am representative for District 141, which is in Penobscot County, Washington County. I'm going to spare you all the names of my towns today, so be forewarned. I will do that at some point here. My husband and I have been married for 27 years. We have 3 children, and I was just promoted to Nana 1 year ago, and he is the most adorable little baby boy ever, and we're super excited to have him in our lives. Our family spent over 10 years doing development work in rural West Africa in extremely impoverished villages. And this is my 2nd term as a representative in the state of Maine. I grew up here, but was away for a lot of years and just came back in 2014. Our oldest son is married just this last October. He's a commercial airline pilot out of Minneapolis. Our daughter is married a year and a half, and she is going to nursing school, accelerated program in the University of Niagara. And I served on HHS last year as well, along with Marine Resources. This year I am only on HHS, so this will be new for me, only serving on 1 committee this year. So glad to see everybody today. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Moore.
Good morning. I'm Mary Ann Moore, and I represent Senate District 6, which is all of Washington County, as well as Goldsboro, Sullivan, and Winter Harbor and Hancock County as well. This is my 2nd term as senator, and again, I'm serving as 2nd term on the HHS committee. I actually retired from AT&T out of Dallas, Texas in 2000, and I currently live in Calais. So Dallas to Calais has been my claim to fame. I actually, upon arrival here in Maine, I actually taught at the community college under computer science, which is what my degrees are in. And then I actually was I owned the Curves franchise, a Curves Fitness Center here in Calais for almost 13 years before going to work for Healthy Acadia as a cancer patient navigator, which I resigned that position once I was elected to Senate as senator because I knew that it would be too hard to try to continue to help my clients as it is. I am the mother of 2 grown women. In fact, my oldest daughter turned 50 this year, which was like, oh my gosh. And I have 2 granddaughters and a grandson, and I have a great granddaughter and a great grandson. They all live in Texas, so I don't get to see them very much. I look forward to working with all of you, and I hope that this is going to be one of our best sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Meyer.
Good morning. I am Representative Michelle Meyer, serving the good people of Southern Maine's House District 2, which is Elliott and parts of South Berwick and Kittery. I am in my 2nd term in the legislature, my 2nd here on HHS. I've spent my professional career as a registered nurse with experience in the clinical setting, in community-based nursing and case management. I am married to Jay, who is my high school sweetheart. We have 3 children and 2 beautiful grandsons who are the light of our life, Connor and Henry, who are 6 and 3. We own and operate an organic farm here in Elliott, where, among other things, we raise Nubian dairy goats who I milk, although not right now. My legislative work takes precedence, and there's simply not enough time to do both this and milking a herd of dairy goats. So I am very proudly serving this term as the House co-chair with Senator Claxton.
Thank you. And I'm Ned Claxton. I represent Senate District 20, which consists of Auburn, Minot, Mechanic Falls, Poland, and New Gloucester. This is my second term. My first term, I was chair on state and local, and I turned that over to Senator Baldacci, and struggled and scrambled to keep up with HHS. So it'll be a little bit easier this year with HHS being my primary obligation and state and local being my secondary. I've been married for 47 years. I have two boys. One lives in Portland and has a daughter that we get to see my granddaughter every once in a while across the parking lot or go for separated walks with her. She's 2. And I have a son who lives in Los Angeles, unfortunately. And we worry about him all the time because of COVID out there. I'm a retired family physician, 40 years in the community, some leadership positions at the hospital before I retired, and then for some reason decided to run for public office. It's turned out to be an honor, a privilege, and a significant responsibility, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be the Senate co-chair for HHS this year. We'll have lots of things to discuss, and I'll talk a little bit about process here in a minute. So we also want to make sure that you all have a chance to introduce yourselves who are staff. So if we could start with Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Broom and I work in the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis. I have been at OPLA, which is what we will call it, this is my 17th session. So I've been here for a little while. Like Senator Claxton and Senator Baldacci, I started actually staffing state and local for several years, and also a little piece of criminal justice in there. And this is, I think, my 9th year of co-staffing the Health and Human Services Committee.
Erin Dooling, could you introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name is Erin Dooling. This is my 5th year serving the legislature with the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis. I have been lucky enough to have always co-staffed the Health and Human Services Committee with Anna. I'm also a licensed Maine attorney and counsel for the committee. So this means that if legal questions come up during the course of committee work, I'm available to help try to answer them for you. Also, I'm going to apologize in advance for my cats who love to Zoom with me.
You'll quickly find out, members of the committee, that Anna and Erin are incredible resources. They've been doing this for a while, and they have a lot to help us with along the way. So we're lucky to have them have been with us in the past and to stick with us this time. The other person who staffs the committee is Carrie Withy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carrie. I was born and raised here in Maine, but my background is as a practicing occupational therapist in rehab and home and community settings. I was actually practicing in Dallas, Texas, and happy to be back in Maine and clerking for HHS. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you and getting to know you.
The other person we work with, especially around budget issues, and we'll see a lot of at budget time, is Luke Lazur.
Thank you. So my name is Luke Lazur. I work in the Office of Fiscal and Program Review. We call it OFPR. I have been there now. This is going to be my 7th year, so my 4th session. Pretty excited to be back. I've been loving my time here. I started my time working in government actually as a town manager up in the area of both Senator Moore and Representative Perry. I was the town manager of the town of Baileyville for about a year. Then I started working for the Department of Health and Human Services, where I was for 6 years before coming here to work in OFPRs for HHS.
Thank you, Luke. We'll be seeing lots of Luke here in the next few weeks as we work on the supplemental and the biennial budget. So today's goals were to introduce ourselves and welcome the new members. As you've heard, several of us are where you are now 2 years ago. So it's not that remote. So we want to make sure that we're a resource to any of the folks who are new to the legislature and new to the committee. That'll help us all do a better job if everybody's on the same page. I will say that introductions in the future, as we go around the horseshoe, quote unquote, will be a little shorter than they were today. These were get to know each other introductions. That's the case until we get to Representative Javner, and she lists off the towns that she represents. So that we usually set aside some extra time for that. So we've accomplished that goal. We're going to hear some presentations from multiple our Sterling committee resources. As part of today's agenda, we'll be getting to know some of the people in the DHHS department, and that will continue in the next few weeks during our orientation process. And we need to do some preliminary steps for having conversations about budget and helping you all understand how that process works. So Michelle, did you have some things that, sorry, Representative Meyer, that's going to happen several times a day. I apologize.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator Claxton. So we want to thank everyone who's been involved in making all of this possible. It's been difficult work in the coordination that's gone into making the virtual committee work possible. At this time, as everyone I believe knows, all meetings are held virtually. And we are, as Senator Claxton says, about 9 months behind the rest of working America in doing so, in becoming adept at this. So we ask for your patience as we all work together to iron out any wrinkles in this process. We're going to make mistakes, we'll learn together, and we'll move forward. We believe that conducting our work virtually will open up opportunities for increased citizen participation in the legislative process. Testimony provided by the public is often compelling and always meaningful in assisting us to more fully understand the perspectives and the experiences of those whose lives are directly impacted by the work of this committee. We intend to conduct our work in a collaborative, transparent manner. Senator Claxton and I have been meeting with the Senate and House leads, Senator Moore and Representative Javner, to discuss the operational aspects of this committee in an effort to troubleshoot any problems with access to the virtual platform and to work with our analysts on member orientation. We agree we'll be starting slow at a 101 or 201 level, taking into account members for whom this is quite new and returning members who may want or need a refresher. I just want to add that I am very proud to serve on this committee alongside the members and the staff present here this morning in their Zoom cubicles. We start our work together between yesterday's celebration of Dr. King's life and legacy and the inauguration of the 46th President of the United States. And at a time that those we serve, many of whom are Maine's most vulnerable citizens, are dealing with extraordinary challenges. I feel confident that this committee will work together with the best interests of their health and well-being in mind, and allowing that to guide all of our work together here for the people of Maine. So thank you so much, everyone, for serving and working together here on the Joint Standing Committee for Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Representative Meyer. I wanted to just take a minute before we get into the specific agenda and content for today's session to flag a couple things just about the mechanics of running a meeting. And then I want to make sure that Senator Moore and Representative Javner have a chance to say something if they'd like. So I'll give you a little bit of warning about that because I hadn't thought to do that until just now. So we'd like to follow a couple of guidelines over the next 2 weeks and then step back and reassess whether those are working for us or not. For instance, can everybody locate the raise your hand function on their computer? And test that out, because I think that's the way we'd like to have people be recognized as much as possible. If you have any trouble with that, that's findable sometimes under the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner. Sometimes it's available under reactions. Has everybody found that okay? So we'd like to use that as plan A for getting recognized by the chair. And as plan B, to put something in chat. If you click on chat, you can see that there's nothing in there right now. It's important to remember that anything we say on camera or record is all recorded. So people who call in will be recorded, people who testify, anything that we say while we're on mic is recorded and part of public access information, as well as anything that shows up in the chat is part of public access. So that's a reason to only put in the chat things related to the mechanics of how the committee works, such as raising a hand, or I want to say something, or my video's broken, or I need technical help, or something like that. If it's related to the mechanics of running the meeting, I would encourage you to use the chat, and to avoid it, we cannot use it for any content because it's not readily available to people who are just calling in. So I want to be careful about that. For the next 2 weeks, I'd ask that nobody have any food or drink on camera, either in the committee room or at home. If you really need to step away, please change to your background photo and feel free. But we'd like not to have the distraction there for people who are checking in. We'd also encourage you, when you can, to keep the video active as much as possible. And we'll get into the mechanics when we get into public hearings about how people who want to testify get recognized. And Carrie's going to help us a lot with that. I'd ask that you keep your mics on mute as much as possible. And I just renamed Representative Craven. I changed the name on her box so that she fits the standard. So now she's Representative Margaret Craven. You're welcome, Margaret. So the other thing that's really important to remember is that if your cell phone goes off during a meeting and we can hear it, the tradition is that you have to contribute $5 to a kitty. So I didn't want that to go unappreciated in the midst of our learning our way through getting started with committee work. It cost me $15 2 years ago until I got the hang of it, both in this committee and state and local. So please turn off your ringer so as we're not distracted from doing the work of the committee while we're doing it. If you need to take a call, then flip to the photo and step away. So with that, those are some of the basic rules. We'd like to have those in place to the end of the month, and then the chairs and leads will reevaluate that after we get some feedback from you all about how that's working. But we just needed to have some place to start. So Senator Moore, did you have something you wanted to contribute to this?
Well, thank you, Senator Claxton, for the opportunity. I look forward to being the Senate minority lead here on the HHS committee. This is my second term in that role. And I must say that I really look forward to working with Senator Claxton and Representative Myers. We have met virtually. We've talked a lot about what's going on, how we're going to be working as a committee. And I really appreciate the transparency and being involved in the conversations and knowing what's going on in the committee. So thank you for that. And I look forward again to working with all of you in this session.
Thank you. Representative Javner.
Thank you, Senator Claxton. I will echo the appreciation for everybody's hard work as we move forward in this platform. Really want to say thank you to Senator Claxton and Representative Meyer for the work that we've already accomplished. And I look forward to getting down to the people's business. So thank you.
And thank you. So the goal for all four of us is to make sure that everybody feels they've had a chance to be heard, both around the horseshoe, on the committee, and in the public setting. And we've agreed on the vast majority of how things are to run, and it's been a good collaborative process we'd like to continue. So With that, I'm ready to turn it over unless Representative Meyer, did you have something else to add? Okay, so I'm ready to turn it over to our A-team analysts. Who's going first?
I am, Senator. So I'm just going to quickly go over what we as OPLA do and also what we do as legislative analysts. Later on this morning, Erin will go through the website with you, and I'm just mentioning that now because we have a number of orientation documents that have already been placed on there. I'm not going to share the screen because I am horrible at multitasking, so talking, reading, and reading in another place is a little beyond what I can actually do. So I just want to let you know that they're there so that you can look at them later, but I'm just going to talk at you for the moment. Erin and I work in the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis, so we're one of the non-partisan offices of the legislature. We're under the Legislative Council along with Luke's office, OFPR, and also the Revisor's Office and the Library. Our director, for those of you who were here last year, has changed. We now, our director is now Danielle Fox, and above all of our offices is the Executive Director's Office, which is led by Suzanne Gresser. So the most important thing to us about our job and how we do it is that we're a non-partisan office. So that means that we are prohibited from taking political positions or advocating on policy positions or issues or doing pretty much anything that could be seen as partisan or political. Before I go any further, I have a tendency to yabber on at a fast rate. So if I start doing that, somebody's going to have to say something because I'm just going to let you know I'm working really hard on not talking really fast right now. Anyway, so that non-partisanship means that we don't put signs in our yards, we don't wear buttons or bumper stickers on our cars, we don't go on marches and protests, and we don't campaign. We don't do any of those things. You will hear often people who are representing organizations talking about being nonpartisan because they're not linked with a party, but they still lobby or advocate for policy positions, and we don't do that. So we don't use the term bipartisan, we don't advocate, we are truly nonpartisan in that we don't do political or policy advocacy. It also means that we stay regardless of the election results. So we're still here, which is why I can be in my 17th year. We follow strict policies of confidentiality, which Erin will talk about a little bit later on. Our office staffs all of the joint standing committees except for the Appropriations Committee and the Taxation Committee, and those analysts are housed in OFPR, where Luke is. We do our very best to steal Luke as often as we possibly can, and we particularly use him for the budget, but he also will come over and talk about fiscal notes sometimes. So what we do in OPLA and here in committee, first of all, we provide nonpartisan policy and legal research. I don't do legal research, Erin does, and analysis of the bills before committee. We draft all the committee amendments. We draft the committee bills. We write reports, memos, letters to the department or to other organizations, all on behalf of the committee. Sometimes we'll work with interested parties, working together on your behest to draft language on a bill. And we welcome those opportunities when you ask us to do that. We don't really encourage other people to draft for us. We do our own drafting as much as we possibly can. And just as a reminder, we're drafting what you're asking us to do. So we're doing the drafting, but we're doing what you have told us to do or asked us to do. We help committees with their oversight functions. So for this committee this year, that's obviously the budget, for example, major substantive rules. We don't have any other scheduled reviews this year, which is really nice for the Health and Human Services Committee. We also do some, we do organizing and drafting for that oversight, just to be clear. We work with the chairs and the leads as much as necessary to do the scheduling. The chairs sign off on the schedules. So if you don't like the schedule, don't blame us, but we do help put it together. We can help individual legislators with drafting and information requests as much as we can. We don't always have the bandwidth to do that, but we do encourage any of you to come to us if you have some questions or you need some extra drafting or information. We staff studies in a similar manner to committees, also designated subcommittees and joint select committees. This was obviously an odd year for that, but I guess it's a whole year ago. For example, I spent the interim doing the Long-Term Care Workforce Commission. Right now, we are helping the revisor's office as much as we can with the drafting of bills. We've all got piles of them, and that's what we are working on when we are not here at the moment. And our office, not Erin or me, also provide information to the presiding officers on the status of committee work, the progress in reaching those deadlines. I can't do that stuff, but we have people for that, thankfully. At this time, we are working remotely for all committee members. We are only in the office on a limited basis. I think you can tell that, well, you can't tell from Luke because he looks like he's on an envelope, but you can tell from Erin and I that we're at home. We're not in our offices. Our office is currently closed to face-to-face meetings, although secretaries are answering phones on a regular schedule. So I just want to ensure you that our office is open in that sense. And so in the same way that we are here for all of you, regardless of your party, we are also staffing in the same way, regardless of whether you're at home or in the building, and that's remotely, because that's the policy that has been set by the Legislative Council and the presiding officers, and that's what we follow. But even though we are staffing remotely, we are still very easy to contact, and we welcome that. You can email us, we'll get right back to you. You can call the office. We have, as I mentioned, the secretaries are there. We check our voicemail, and I think some of us forward our work phones directly to our home as well. And of course, there is the ever-present Zoom. You can ask us anything. We are here to help in any way that we can. And if you need something that we can't provide or it's not appropriate for us to provide, we can suggest other people. So for example, if it looks like something you are looking for is actually more partisan than what we do, we can suggest that you talk to your staff. You maybe you're looking for talking points on the floor. That's not something that we do. We help you understand what the bill is that you are dealing with, but talking points would be somebody else. But the point is, you can always ask us. We do operate under those provisions of confidentiality. And if it's not appropriate for us to answer it, we will try to suggest somebody that would be more appropriate. So that's what our office does and what we as legislative analysts do. And the other thing that I'm going to talk about before I pass it over to Erin is the flow of legislation. Now, there is a flow chart for this, and in a normal world, we would hand that out. However, and it is posted, but I'm not going to share it because it is a little bit different this year because we're operating remotely. So I'm just going to briefly go over what we do because it's useful to understand what Erin and I do during that flow of legislation. But I do just want to let you know that Erin always says that the flow of legislation is not as interesting or lyrical as the Schoolhouse Rock version. So I'm sorry, not quite so much fun. But I come from a political science background, so maybe it's more akin to that. So first of all, as you know, a bill is printed. You know, if you are sponsoring some bills this year, you'll be seeing those come from the revisor's office, and you'll be signing them, and then they get printed. This year, it's unusual, but it is more like what we would do in a second regular session, which is the bills are being referred by the clerk of the House for a House bill or the secretary of the Senate for a Senate bill. So referring bills is a function of the legislature. It's not a function of nonpartisan staff. And in the past, I've always tried to stress that because in a regular first session, bills are referred on the floor, which makes it a legislative function. And I have always said that that would mean that if you wanted to refer every single bill to the Inland and Fisheries and Wildlife Committee, you could do that. This year, I'm guessing that Derek Grant and the clerk of the House, Rob Hunt, will probably not allow that to happen. So I guess you'll be getting all your bills. So once that bill is now in committee, we will determine it, put it on a schedule for when it might be advertised for a public hearing. That public hearing requires 2 weekends of notice, unless there has been permission to do it on a shorter schedule. Once a bill has been advertised, it can't be withdrawn by a sponsor. People will sign up to testify, and they will submit their testimony through the portal. And that's a little bit of a mysterious world that Kerry will be involved in, and not me, except that I'll be looking at the testimony online the same way that you will be, and listening to it the same way that you will be. So during the public hearing, we take notes, we write down your requests for information and questions. The end of a public hearing is an excellent time to ask us for your information requests. I do just want to mention, this is an unusual committee in that it has so much work that you have 2 full-time analysts. You are very lucky in that sense. So when we are scheduling bills, you will see one of us. So you will only see both of us at the beginning of the year for the orientation, for any kind of briefings, and for the budget. So you'll see both of us for a little while, but then you will see one of us. We don't expect you to always remember which analyst belongs to which committee. If you send an email to both of us, that's fine. So we'll be there during the public hearing, or one of us will be there during the public hearing. And if you think of a question later on that you didn't think of during the public hearing, just shoot us an email or give us a call. It doesn't have to be raised during a public hearing. It can be useful because you don't know what other people are looking for in terms of information. But if you think of something later on, or even during the meeting, just shoot us an email if you're looking for an information request. So then we'll get to the work session. There's at least a week between a public hearing and a work session, with the occasional exceptions. You might go immediately into a work session after a public hearing if you want to immediately or not to pass a bill, or maybe it's a very simple fix and you can do it right away. But generally speaking, the work session will be at a later date, with some time for us to collect whatever it is that you are looking for. We will provide you with a bill analysis. What does the bill actually do? Are there problems with the language? What were the questions that you had, the request for information? Sometimes we'll have those answers. Other times we will have the person that has those answers. Sometimes I feel like a little bit of a traffic light in that, I'm like, it's your turn to come over. You stop, just wait a minute. And so I do that quite a bit because I don't have the answers. I know who to ask for the answers some of the time. This year, with it being remote, we will be sharing bill analyses and work session documents in a different way from we have in the past, and they will once again be electronic only. Sometimes we will send them to you ahead of time in an email. Sometimes we will post them ahead of time. Sometimes we will send them in an email and then post them on the day. Sometimes we will be sharing them and you'll be seeing them for the first time. It will depend on the bill. It will depend on the timing of the information requests. It will depend on who's available to post things, the complexity of the bill. The bottom line of this is when we send you an email, we really, really ask that you read it. And I guess a little bit the same for Kerry. If Kerry sends you an email, you should also read those. Yes, read our emails. That's what I want to pass on there. And that work sessions will be a little bit different each time. And honestly, that's not different to in the past. In the past, we've sometimes brought you things ahead of time because we know that you need to know some certain things in caucuses, and other times we just don't have it until the last minute. So it will not always be the same way. It'll be some variation. But work sessions themselves are your time to discuss the bill and what you want to do with it. Permission is required for others to participate, usually through the chairs. We will relay to the chairs the people that we have lined up to answer questions, if you so desire to hear their answers. Sometimes we line those people up and you don't actually end up engaging them, and that's okay. But that's your call. We line up the people, you decide if you want to actually hear from them. And then at that work session, you'll vote. I'm sure you already know this. Ought not to pass, ought to pass, ought to pass as amended. Those are, generally speaking, the options. If you have an amendment at a work session, and that's how you're going to vote, you need to state what that is in public. That's what the joint rules require. So you would need to be at a work session to present an amendment if no one else is on that amendment as well. If you're out there on your own and you've got your own amendment that you want to vote for at a work session, you would need to be at the work session to present it. So we're asking you, when you're faced with that situation where you need to explain what your amendment is, we're talking concepts and bullet points here. We're not asking you to draft yourself. That is our job. I know I sound like a stuck record, but I also see Erin nod every time I say it. Do not try to draft yourself. That is our job. So then we'll draft the amendments after that work session. Luke will do the fiscal note. We will bring the language and the amendment back for review in a public setting to ensure that it says what you intend it to say. Sometimes we'll have questions. We'll start drafting and we realize that there's something that we needed to know that we don't know because we don't think of everything on the day. And we'll come back and we'll ask you those questions in public as well. At that point, when we present those amendments and fiscal notes in public, they become public. Before that, they are confidential unless we've been given permission to share them with the department or with other stakeholders. And we will often ask you this. When you vote for something, we will ask if it's okay for us to work with the department or whatever that particular thing is, so that you know, because they have the expertise. We may be the drafters, but we don't have the program knowledge, and we will often need somebody with that program knowledge to help us. Main care is a nice, easy example. It's very complex, and we often need the subject matter help. But we will ask you at a work session for that. Luke also needs permission to share amendments with the department for cost purposes. Usually that's a blanket approval on your part, but we'll talk about that when we get to the first bill that needs a fiscal note. And then after that bill gets reported out of committee, it goes to the floor and it's out of our hands at that point. You can always ask us if you need some kind of floor amendment for a bill. Feel free to come and ask us if you need some help with that. And you can always ask us questions if you need little refreshers. As I mentioned, we don't do things like bullet points, talking points rather, but if you need a little refresher on, I can't quite remember the details of that bill, you can ask us. But once it gets to the floor, we often stop paying attention because we've got so many other things that we need to be doing, and then we're on to the next thing. And sometimes we catch up at the end of session to find out what actually happened to things because we didn't have time to look. But I just want to emphasize that we are always here to answer any questions, and that nonpartisanship is our big thing. And that's me for a little while, Senator. I think we're on to Erin next.
Senator, were you speaking?
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, Anna. Does anybody have questions for Ms. Broom? I told you we'd be making mistakes as fast as I could so we could fix them. Anybody got any questions? I see Representative Jabner's hand up.
Thank you, Senator Christen. Perhaps I'm jumping in a bit, and I know that Luke is going to speak a little bit later, but with a fiscal note issue, maybe Anna can speak to, I have a question concerning when we get to fiscal notes, if we have questions on how that fiscal note was formed. Is it a possibility we have the opportunity to ask someone from the financial office to come?
Absolutely. And sometimes Luke will come. Oh, I'm feeding back, aren't I? Yes, absolutely, Representative. And we often talk with Luke before we bring a fiscal note back as well, so that we can make sure that we understand it as well. But absolutely, when you have questions, He can either come, we can ask those questions on your behalf and get the answer. There is always an avenue open for that.
Great, thank you very much.
So Representative Javner's asking about the fiscal note on every bill that we hear, and this year it'll be between 200 and 250 approximately. Consideration is given as to whether there is a financial impact to the bill, either to increase expenses, increase revenues, decrease expenses, decrease revenues. And then that fiscal note is based upon some methodology that Luke can speak to. It may be $0 if we're renaming a bridge, as we would have in state and local. It may be millions of dollars, depending upon how we reallocate monies. So each bill at least gets consideration about whether it needs a fiscal note or not. And we'll make sure Luke has a chance to speak to that later on. The other thing I forgot to mention is that sitting for a long period of time is bad for people. So just flip up your photo and move around if you need to every hour or two. We'll find out in a couple of weeks whether people have been good about that or not, or whether we need to build that into the structure of the committee hearing. But as I told people, some friends, I've really perfected my sitting skills since I got to the legislature. We need to work on other skills in protecting ourselves. So getting up and moving around is a good idea. So I will leave that in everybody's hands. So I assume that we're going to hear from Erin Dooling.
Yes, thank you. So the first topic I'm going to talk about is the Freedom of Access Act, which Senator Claxton thankfully previewed in relation to the Zoom chat function. I think the biggest takeaway about freedom of access, or FOA as we refer to it in shorthand, is that the legislature intends that the business, the people's business, occur openly, and that deliberations and records be accessible to the public. And so this takes two different forms. One of them is in the form of meetings. So as Anna mentioned, all of our meetings have advertising deadlines to the world. So we must have all of our committee meetings or subcommittees of the meetings be public and have notice go out to the public. The other aspect is about documents. And so most papers or documents, including electronic records of the legislature, are public records. And I'm going to talk about some special circumstances and how they apply to your work. One of them is the chat in Zoom. Please do not use that function for anything substantive other than saying, I can't hear, or I need IT help, or whatever that is. But it should not be used as a format to discuss the bill while you are all discussing the bill on mic and on video. The next one, I'm just going to share my screen really quickly, is to please be mindful of reply all emails, especially in this virtual world. It's really easy to just hit reply all, and all of a sudden you've accidentally started a committee discussion, and committee discussions should be held in public. So please remember YODA and not hit reply all. I think I stopped sharing my screen. Is that right? Okay. The other special circumstances are party caucuses that you may have, your partisan caucuses. They are not committees or subcommittees of the legislature. So those meetings do not appear to be public proceedings. But as in those meetings, you should be careful that those caucuses are not used to circumvent the public proceeding requirement. And so ensuring that deliberations and occur openly and be accessible to the public is really kind of the intent and overall purpose of that act. Finally, the last thing I'm going to say about FOA is the use of legislative email. We understand that in new member orientation and chairs and leads or whatever else introductory meetings you've had, that you've been told to exclusively use your legislative email. In part, that's because of FOA. If you're using your personal email, you'll have to search your own personal email if there was a records request. The legislative emails are all archived somehow with our IT department, and it makes those searches easier. So we will always send emails to your legislative account, even if you reply or send us an email from a personal account. And that is the instructions that we've been given from on high. So our director, IT department, and the executive director's office. Are there any questions on FOA before I move on?
Representative Zager, did you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, and thank you so much for that clarification. My question is, if there is an item or material that is at a long URL that we, in open discussion, want to bring up, what's the best mechanism to share that with those that might be viewing at home, but we can't, in a practical way, say the long URL? What is the best way to ensure that we can share those links in discussion, but also to make it practical?
Can I just ask for a clarification, Representative? Are you meaning that if something that you want to share with the committee during deliberations of the committee, or ahead of time? Or?
Yes, during open discussion, if we say, I don't know, there was a mention of Schoolhouse Rock video. So if that was germane to something in a bill, then, and we wanted to review that, or at least make sure that people could review it. Sure. My understanding is that I couldn't just post that in chat because that's not visible to the general public who might be viewing. But if it's a long URL, how do we do that in a way that meets the needs of transparency?
I think that directing, speaking about what materials you're leading to, and then directing committee members through the chat is fine. If it's a link that you desire to be sent to the world, we can send an email to the interested parties list during a meeting and have either us or the clerk do that so that everybody can follow along. And then after the meeting, we can't post, Anna and I are not the ones who post the documents, so we can't post documents during meetings. We have to ask other people to help us with that. We can provide that link also on the committee materials page after the meeting.
Thank you.
And generally, we want to be careful about alluding to any visual information. For those who are just listening on the phone, they wouldn't have access to that, which is why we don't do PowerPoint presentations in support of a bill or things like that. So we have to be careful about how we use some of our capacities. Are there any other questions for Aaron? So I assume then we're going to Luke.
Nope, not quite done with me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I just was moving on to a different topic. So I just wanted to wrap that one up. The next topic is confidentiality. Anna mentioned that we operate under strict confidentiality guidelines. And so you'll see us working for the committee publicly like this, but we also help legislators behind the scenes with requests for information, research requests, drafting, both proposed bills and proposed amendments, and any other communications. So all of those behind the scenes communications, whether they're by email or by phone or virtual meeting, are kept confidential by us, which means we don't turn around and tell your seatmate in the legislature that you asked us a question about whatever, or we don't share with the department or a stakeholder that you're thinking about an amendment on a certain topic. We keep that information to ourselves, with the exception that we often do discuss with other offices that are under the nonpartisan umbrella to help with your request. So for example, if you have a question about a fiscal note and you've come to Anna or I, we almost certainly will ask Luke. But he is also covered by the same confidentiality as we are. So is the revisor's office. Any of the nonpartisan offices do not share that information. The other exception to this is if we have worked on something for you, like a proposed amendment, and those materials did not become public for whatever reason during the course of the committee process. And but those materials are in our physical files. And so after session ends, all of our written materials become public. But while the bill is alive and you are considering the bill, it is not something that that we share or release to anybody else. So in practice, this means a couple of things. One is that, as Anna said, please ask us if you have questions. We really are available and happy to help. No other legislator or partisan staff or stakeholder will ever know we talked. And this is especially important in this virtual setting. We can't read the room as well as we can in person. And so we don't know if you're with us as we're talking. And it's not like we can just approach you after and check in and see how things are going. So if you really didn't understand something or need something, please just ask us. The other reason this is important is about proposed amendments, and you'll hear us talk about this again. So if this goes over your head, for now, don't worry about it. But if you have an amendment that you'd like to propose on a bill during a work session, you need to be present and virtually present to offer your amendment. And so even if we've worked on it, we do not discuss that it exists until we have your express permission. And so one time I worked on preparing an amendment for a bill sponsor, but the sponsor didn't end up coming to the work session. So I never mentioned the amendment, didn't bring it up. The copies I made weren't distributed. But those draft, in terms of confidentiality, that draft and my communications are in the bill file and are now public. But as part of the committee process, we kept that confidential. Are there questions about confidentiality before I go on to the website? Okay, seeing none.
I want to check in with Luke though and see, is this working for him okay? Because I know he's a highly prized resource during the budget season.
Yeah, I've already talked to Anna and Aaron, and I'm all set for the morning. So you've got me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I am going to share my screen, and I know that this is a little clunky because we all get even smaller and can't see everything. But I do just want to direct your attention to a few resources that are available to you and probably more important in this environment than during other sessions. So let me see if I can do that. Can you all see, do you see the legislative homepage in front of you? Okay, so this is probably the most important page or one of them, because you can get to really anything I'm going to talk about through this page within just a few clicks. So we've mentioned a number of times the committee materials will be posted. I recommend that once you get to navigate to that page, you bookmark it like I've done here. I don't know if you can see it. That way you can just quickly go right to that page and not have to go through the website. But for this first time, so members of the committee and the public know how to access it, I'm going to walk you through it. So you click on committees.
And
Legislative.
by bookmarking, Aaron, you mean just dragging the URL down into that top line? Is one way.
I think there's a bunch of ways to do it. I usually click here and hit add a bookmark this tab.
Yeah.
But I think it depends on what browser you're using, and I'm
but if
not
people have
the right
questions
person.
about that, they can ask us. Yeah, if people have questions about that, they can ask us how to do that because it really is a time saver.
Yeah. So here you have a drop-down menu where you can select the Health and Human Services Committee. This page is where people can access the audio for any of the committee meetings. Our committee schedule, members of the committee are all here. Also our contact information and how to sign up. I'm sorry, and the YouTube link are all accessible on this page. To get to the committee materials, you will click on this link. And this is where we will be posting materials for our committee. So we've already started. Some of you may have noticed that the reports received by the committee that you'll do your book reports on are available here. And I'll talk about book reports in a little bit. We also have the supplemental budget materials that Luke will spend more time discussing with you than I will. But we have both the documents that we have available to us right now available on the website. And we have our orientation materials here. And these are all PDF documents that when you click on them, they should open. So this is our office overview. They're a series of 1 or 2 pager quick references that you can refer back to as needed. So this is particularly important. Like I said, virtually, Anna said how the tools we have available to help you are emailing the documents, screen sharing documents, or posting documents to our committee page. The exception to this will be the biennial budget, which we intend to provide paper copies for you, just because it's such a massive undertaking to try to do remotely. Let's see. So I'm just going to go back to the homepage here. Often, and we'll spend more time teaching you at some point how to read bills and read and understand fiscal notes. That's a topic for another day because we don't want to overwhelm you too much. But if you need to look up a statute to see what the current law is or figure out where something's been drafted, it's just on the homepage here, and you click on statutes. And this brings you to a searchable database of all of Maine codified Maine law. And what's been especially helpful this year that's new is that if a section of law cross-references another section of law, you can just hyperlink right to that section so you don't have to separately go and search for it. So it makes navigating the titles a lot easier. Back to the homepage. Another document that you might refer to often is the legislature's, website, is the legislature's YouTube channel. If you wanted to share that information with constituents or stakeholders, that link is available right here on the website, in addition to being on the HHS committee page that I pointed out earlier. Another helpful document is the list of legislative bill requests, which are available here, also in this left-hand side. It's available from the revisor's office. And these are all the bills that have been filed so far for this session. And as you click through, you can see they're sorted by sponsor or subject and agency. Going back to the homepage, I think that there's just one more feature I'd like to share with you. And that is how you can find information about a particular bill, especially how to access public testimony that's posted online. And in doing so, I'm going to show you a bill search function. So for any bills that exist for this session, you can, on this homepage, just type in, LD1 and find any of the bills. So you can see that LD1 has been printed, but none of these bills have had public hearings yet. So to find public testimony, for example, from a bill from last session, you have to use the bill search. So here you can search, there's so many different fields you can pick from. The ones I narrow the most often are the session, the LD number, and who the sponsor was or what word might be in the title. So for example, if I want to see the bills that Senator Claxton sponsored in the 129th legislature, I put in 129th at the top right here, select Senator Claxton, select that he's the prime sponsor, and hit search. And here are all of the legislative sentiments and documents that he's sponsored. And you can just scroll through. To find the testimony or the information about a particular bill, you find the LD that you're interested in. So you click here, LD 280 from last year, or last session rather. And it brings you to a page where you have all these actions along the left side to help you find the information. If you need to know what the bill text was, you can click on that document, or that link rather, and then hit, I don't know why it didn't take you there, but if you hit text here, you can pull up what the bill looked like. But going back to this home page, when you hit bill text, or status in committee, sorry, it's a little, it's not doing what I thought it would do. You see here that if you can get the electronic versions of all the public testimony, and they're organized alphabetically and by organization. And so you can just click right on a piece of testimony and it'll pull up that person's testimony to the committee. I know that that's a lot of information. I can go through that again as we start hearing bills and working them so that you can find the testimony. It's not like there's one testimony page you can bookmark and check out for all the bills. You have to search and go in for each bill that you might be interested in, which is why I can't just give you a neat little link. But in any case, I hope that, and I'll send out these links before, but especially the committee materials page is probably the thing that you and the website the legislature's homepage are the links you will use the most often.
Aaron, did you get any feedback from the powers that be about whether they could include some descriptor of whether testimony that was searchable could be labeled as for, against, or neither for nor against?
I submitted your feedback to my director, and the last I heard was that those discussions were ongoing.
Okay, I just thought it'd be easier for the committee to understand that it'd be nice to be able to look up a bill and quickly read 3 of the fors and 3 of the againsts. That was sort of the number I came up with last session to get a sense of the bill and how it was being read and interpreted. So I'd asked for that as an enhancement, that they consider that. The other thing that your presentation raises, Aaron, is that when you share screen, I lose the ability to see a raised hand. So in those circumstances, the committee needs to feel free to unmute themselves and address the chair. Chair, I have a question or something like that. I want to make sure we can do that during the course of the presentation when the screen is shared. I know that doesn't happen all that often, but it'll happen plenty often enough that I want to make sure people can get a question in if they have it. So that's something I learned from that session. Thank you.
So I will, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to turn it over to Luke.
All right, so I don't see any questions up there, so I will step in now. I am going to walk through with you a little bit about my office, the Office of Fiscal Program Review, OFPR, and also a little bit about your place in the budget process, which we're going to jump into relatively quickly as there is a substantial supplemental budget that we'll be dealing with soon. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen So I can walk you through the office overview document for OFPR. First, I want to note that right at the top here is some important information. If you ever need to get in touch with me, you can obviously email me. If you want to talk to me on the phone, you can call our office. I am available to get all my calls from my office phone. They're sent straight to my cell phone to make it nice and easy. So please use those avenues. I'm also willing to set up face-to-face if anyone ever feels the need. We can do Microsoft Teams meetings, and I can just send those along to anyone at any time. So whatever you find easiest, I can make it happen. I also want to point out that at the top of this, there is a link to the Office of Fiscal and Program Review website, which is on the main legislative website. We'll go back there in a little bit to discuss just a few of the documents that are there. So first, I just want to walk through what the Office of Fiscal Program Review is. I think you've heard already a couple times some of the main things we do. We help you work through the budget, and we provide fiscal notes. Those are our two main purposes, but there are other areas as well. So as far as who we staff, as Anna pointed out, I think early on, OPLA staffs all the committees except two, and those two are staffed by OFPR. One of them is a taxation committee, and we have an analyst, a wonderful analyst in our office who handles that committee. And then there's the Appropriations and Financial Affairs Committee, and that is really staffed by the entire office. That's not a one-person job. That is something where all of us sort of handle our area of expertise and are called on by the Appropriation and Financial Affairs Committee, AFA, quite often just to answer questions and help them through their deliberations. Additionally, we do also staff two committees, Transportation and Health and Human Services, specifically for the budget. That is something that we'll be doing soon, both for the supplemental budget and then for the biennial budget. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time with you in Zoom walking through the entire budget. Now, my purpose there generally is to walk you through and help you understand what line items mean. However, when we get to that point, the Department of Health and Human Services is also a huge help, because though I can understand what I've heard during either the public hearing or at other times during work sessions, I am not the one making the recommendations. I'm just trying to help you understand what those recommendations mean. So that's where Department of Health and Human Services is a huge help in that process, and they always have been. We also provide the fiscal notes for bills. Now, that process is different depending on where the bill is. So what I mean by that is when we're doing fiscal notes, we actually don't do fiscal notes for the original bills. Those are what we often call the item ones. That's the bill in its original form as you first see it. Those bills, we do preliminary fiscal impact statements, but they're a little different than fiscal notes just because they are on that original bill, and we're not required to do them. And I think that's the key thing and the reason for that difference. I will tell you that for Health and Human Services, I try as hard as I can to do every single preliminary fiscal impact statement I can, because there are very few bills that come before Health and Human Services that have no impact. There are just so many areas that get impacted, and I really want the committee, before they even move into work sessions, if I can, to have some idea of what that fiscal impact is. So I do work very hard with the help of Department of Health and Human Services. They're a big resource as far as providing information that I use to provide those preliminary fiscal impact statements. When the bill then becomes a committee amendment and moves on, those bills are required by joint order, by joint rules for me to do a fiscal note. I do that fiscal note again with the help of any entity who provides information that's helpful. In the end, that fiscal note is the Office of Fiscal and Program Review's fiscal note. However it's laid before you is based on what I have decided as I've worked through that process. Anytime you have questions about a fiscal note, if you just don't quite understand how I came to my numbers, just ask. You can ask through Anna and Aaron if you need, or you can come straight to me. I'm always willing to talk about fiscal notes. I think I enjoy it a little too much, but that's a common problem in our office. So you can just email me, call me, whatever, and we can talk about any fiscal note. And if you or anyone on the committee feel that I should come and present before the committee on a fiscal note because there's some very important information that should be laid out, just let Anna and Aaron know, and they will make sure that I'm there. I'm always available for this committee. I am lucky in that I am the only analyst in the Office of Fiscal Program Review who only does one committee. You are my committee. So anytime you need me, just let me know. I just want to lay out a few of the other things that our office does. We provide any other fiscal budget assistance that you as a legislator or a committee member feel you need. I can look into information anywhere within Health and Human Services. If you have questions about other areas that are not Health and Human Services, I can certainly direct you to the individual in our office who handles that area. We're always willing to talk about anything that has to do with the fiscal nature of different departments. We also staff the Revenue Forecasting Committee. There are 2 members of OFPR on that committee. It's a very important committee that meets twice a year. And in some cases, like this past year, we actually, our RFC met 3 times to go over the revenue for the state. And that helps as we move through the budget process to understand where the state is going as we move forward. We also will staff any study groups, task force, conference committees that are assigned to us by the Legislative Council. The other big area that I wanted to talk about is the Appropriations Committee and what happens with bills when they come from the HHS Committee. So as the HHS Committee sends out committee amendments, those bills get fiscal notes attached. And if there is a fiscal note on the bill that is an actual cost, those bills generally, and there are rules around this, and I won't get into all the details because it's so bill specific, but I'll just say that generally if there's a number on that bill, it goes on what's called the Special Appropriations Table. This means that the bill doesn't get finally passed until the Appropriations Committee sends the bill back to the Senate to allow it to be passed. This is done because as we're moving through a session, it's hard to know exactly how much money is available at any given point in time because it all depends on what happens with the budget, what happens with the supplemental budget, and what happens with all the other bills that are sent to the floor from committees. So with that understanding, this Special Appropriations Table is a place where all bills that have fiscal notes are held. There can be amendments done to bills as they're on the table by members of the Appropriations Committee. And those bills only make it out and off the Appropriations Table when the Appropriations Committee themselves votes on sending a bill forward. That is a whole interesting process that generally does not get started until after the budget has been passed. It's usually a pretty long and arduous process to walk through all those bills. But it's an interesting process, and I think something that it's good you're aware of. The only other thing here that I wanted to point out is I'm going to now switch to, I'm going to use my link right up here and go to OFPR's website. I just want to show you a couple of publications that are on this website. So right on the OFPR website, there's a publications link on the left here. And this has documents that we present mostly annually, some more biannually. These documents are always printed and in the OFPR office, but obviously as those offices are not really open the way they normally are, this is a great place to access information. One is the budget process, and this document here walks through what the full budget process looks like. So if you're interested in reading that, I suggest it's a good thing to help you fall asleep at night. We also have a document that walks through the fiscal note process. It explains what we're required to do when it has to be done. And that actually reminds me, one other thing I should point out when it comes to fiscal notes. There are sort of 2 kinds of fiscal notes that get done. For preliminary fiscal impacts and the committee amendments, we do what are full fiscal notes. They take into account everything in the bill. When we do a floor amendment, it's a little different. The fiscal note isn't the full comprehensive fiscal note of everything in the bill. It is simply a fiscal note about what the change on the floor amendment does to a bill. We do that because floor amendments come in fast and furious. And sometimes it would be really hard to do full fiscal notes every single floor amendment that comes in. So we simply will note what that specific amendment does to the bill. Then when a bill gets engrossed, we make a full fiscal note around it. But that's just something to be aware of. It is a little different. And when you start seeing floor amendments and their fiscal notes, it's just something to be aware of. The last two documents I want to show, we have this municipal funding report, which you can see here. We have the last 6 years of it. That report outlines the major state funding to municipalities from different areas. DHHS does not really have a lot to do with municipal funding. The only information in that report from DHHS has to do with the general assistance that's provided to municipalities. The last document is probably the most important. This one's called the compendium. This document outlines the historical revenue and expenditures in all areas of the departments. It's a really comprehensive document. It's big. There's a lot of information in it, and the information is not just for 1 year, it's for multiple years. So I'll just quickly go in and show you what a table looks like in here. So here is the individual income tax revenue, and you can see it shows back to state fiscal year 2011 through state fiscal year 2020. It has what the general fund revenue was, the other special, and the total. That's done for all revenue sources in the state. There's this same table. It looks very similar for each area, and it also has information. You can see here there's just a description of what the individual income tax is, and there are also at the end of these tables often notes that help explain especially changes that have happened over time. So it's a really helpful document. I'm often asked about revenue, and that is the place to go if you're interested in how much revenue do we bring in a certain area. Obviously, you can also just ask me the question, and I will help you find that part in the document. So that is my overview of the office. So I'll stop for a moment just to see if there are any questions there before I move on to the next area I'm going to discuss.
Hi, Luke. This is Margaret Craven. Are we going to get paper budget bills? And is that going to be just the HHS budget?
So what I believe you're going to be sent is the full biennial budget. That will be in paper form because the biennial budget is just so large that it has to be the in paper form for that. Most everything else you see from us will not be in paper. I will still be creating my document that I call the HHS doc that takes in this case, I already am working on one for the supplemental budget. There'll also be one for the biennial budget. And what that document does is it takes the many disparate pages that are the budget and compresses it into one large Excel document. It's a lot easier to sort through because anything that's the same is put together, where in the budget, it's all based on which program is the impact in. And so each program has all of its areas, all of its impacts, and then you move on to the next program. That can be really hard because especially in DHHS, some initiatives are in 6, 7, 8 different programs, and it's hard to see it all in that paper document. I still will be creating that document, and it will be posted in an electronic form on the HHS materials page. So I am going to do my best to make the document easy to read on screen, because I know that it's normally a very large document on 11 by 14 paper. So I have to try and figure out the best way to make it something that everyone can read on screen. I will obviously, when we're working through that document, I'll be sharing my screen and walking through. So hopefully that will help because we can all be looking at the same place, but you will also be able to open it on a different device if you would like and look at it that way. So I think that's the plan for those budget documents.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to ask, are we going to get any of those documents ahead of time?
Well, ahead of time, yes. I never hand out my documents before the public hearings because it usually makes things very confusing. The public hearings when the department comes to speak and talk through the budget, they will be using the pages that are in the actual printed budget. So we don't hand out my document until that's done. So we just don't want to confuse things. But I tend to have that document ready towards the end of the time we're doing the public hearings. And so when public hearings are over, I think I will work with Anna and Aaron to get those documents up as quick as we can so you can see them ahead of time and look through them a bit. I think there will be at a future time, and Senator Claxton maybe could speak to this, but I believe there is going to be a chance for me to walk through a previous document, not this year's supplemental or biennial, but just a previous one, so you can see what it looks like and we can talk about the format and the layout of it, which hopefully can help as we move to doing those public hearings and work sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Yes, we've talked about trying to figure out how to make sure that we have some of your time prior to seeing a real budget. The question's been raised about whether we all go to AFA next week from today to at least watch that as an educational process, or whether we have some time with you in committee, and that's still unresolved. So we'll let you know as soon as that gets sorted out. You used the term engrossed, Luke. You want to speak to what that means for people who, like myself, who were in about 4 months before I knew what that meant?
Sure. So the bill along the way has different stages. Obviously, there's the original bill. That's the item 1. That's exactly as it's originally drafted by the revisor statutes or OPLA or OFPR. We do draft bills as well. It's always dangerous, but we do it when there's appropriations included. And so that's the original bill. Then you have the committee amendments, which are the amendments that are voted out of committee. And the engrossed bill is just that final bill. That's after the House and Senate have had their say to vote on the bill. And it gets engrossed after the final vote of the bill. And we do fiscal notes along the way for all those different stages. And so we do a final fiscal note for an engrossed bill.
Thank you. Any questions? I don't see any. Thank you, Luke.
All right, so the next area I'm planning to talk about is just a little discussion about the policy committee's role in the budget itself. So first, the first big item is that one of your roles is to advise the Appropriations Financial Affairs Committee on the portions of the state budget that affect areas within your committee's jurisdiction. How that's generally handled is that AFA, when they do the public hearing for the budget that includes the areas that are Department of Health and Human Services, they will have a joint hearing with the committee to go through that public hearing. That public hearing, it can be the whole HHS committee or it can be a subcommittee, but there is a joint hearing that allows the HHS committee to hear all of the public reaction to the budget as step 1 of that work. The next step is that the HHS committee then goes back into committee and does work sessions on that budget. We tend to have quite a fun time with that. There's a couple weeks where it's very much just walking through the budget document, asking questions, answering questions, and eventually voting on each line of the budget. After that process is done, there is a report back that's done by the HHS committee, usually by the chairs and leads, back to the Appropriations Committee to outline areas of agreement, areas of disagreement, and it gives both the chairs and the leads a chance to discuss those areas that were areas of contention, so that the committee understands where the AFA committee understands where the HHS committee ended up with their budget deliberations. It's good to note that you report back to the AFA committee, but obviously they have the final say in how that budget gets done. They are the ones who report out that final committee amendment of the budget. So the information from the HHS committee is very important, but it's just important to note also that it's not a final say. You're giving the AFA committee information for their deliberations. The other area where the HHS committee helps the AFA committee is in actual fiscal notes. As I discussed briefly earlier, there is this special appropriations table where any bill that has a fiscal note ends up on the appropriations table. Towards the end of session, the AFA committee will ask for each committee to provide information on their budgetary priorities relating to bills that are on the table. This is often done as a list of here are the bills that we see as the biggest priorities of all the ones we've sent to you that have a fiscal note. That is also good information for the AFA committee to understand what areas the policy committee thought were most important of the bills that got sent to the table. That is the main areas that you have to worry about when it comes to the budget. There will be more talk about this as we start working on the budget. But that's it for now. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, those last two pieces that Luke refers to are, to my mind, what really helps define this as a policy committee and not an appropriations or allocations committee. We really make our, as a committee, make our recommendations to AFA, but they're recommendations. And so you're going to hear from testimony that says you need to find another $1 million, and it really is not us to find it. It's our job is to figure out where that request for $1 million fits in our overall priorities. So that's an evolving process that will happen over time. Thank you, Luke. Are there any? I don't see any questions. Okay.
Then I will hand it back to Anna to talk about OPEGA.
Hey, Anna, how about if we take a 10-minute break right now, mid-session, and give everybody the opportunity to get up and move around?
You are the boss.
I work for Anna and Aaron. So that's pretty close to 10 minutes. I've been looking around my room for something that has a thunk that sounds like a gavel, but I don't have one. So we'll just restart. We'll just restart the committee. And I hope taking those kinds of breaks every once in a while will help folks manage what are longer term commitments for sessions as we go forward and to get into hearing bills. So the next piece is from OPEGA.
Me. Yes. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about OPEGA. They are an independent, nonpartisan office that is established in statute. If you are new to the legislature, you're probably still familiar with OPEGA just from reading the newspapers. So they conduct independent reviews of state agencies, programs, or activities to support the legislature's oversight role. They do evaluation, program compliance, policies, best practice, that sort of thing.
OPEGA stands for?
Oh, I'm sorry, the Office of Program Evaluation and Governmental Accountability. Sorry about that, Senator. And also important to this is the Government Oversight Committee. That's the Joint Standing Committee that has the oversight of the OPEGA and also OPEGA staffs the Government Oversight Committee. So the Government Oversight Committee, which is made up of legislators, is slightly different makeup than the other joint standing committees. There are more senators, I believe. So the GOC reviews and approves the OPEGA annual work plan, and they also direct OPEGA to conduct program evaluations, and they receive their reports. So that's the legislative side of it. And then OPEGA staffs the GOC committee, and you can see if you go on their website at any point, OPEGA has a link for request for a review. Anyone can request a review, but the GOC decides the work plan. We have in the past drafted many things that don't follow the statute for OPEGA, and we are always reminding people in the legislature that the GOC determines the work plan for OPEGA. So that's the really big sort of takeaway here, as well as the fact that they are an independent, nonpartisan office. They are separate from us, but they are an important part of the legislature. So that's the quick overview for OPEGA. That has also got a up on our orientation on the committee website. You can see the handout for that as well. So I'm going to pass it back to Erin to talk about, oh, I'm sorry, Senator, go ahead.
Yes, Anna, do you have a couple examples of things that have gone to OPEGA or come out of OPEGA, just to get a sense of?
Well, you know, the one that you've been hearing a lot about recently, of course, is Child Protective. Yeah. That's the big one that we've been hearing about a lot lately. One of the ones that quite a number of years ago that people heard a lot about was the issue of the Turnpike Authority.
So people have submitted a request to OPEGA to do a review, and those are reports that then come out of OPEGA.
They do, but GOC determines which reviews will be done.
Sure.
So there are many more requests than reviews that can be undertaken.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm going to now pass it back to Erin. She's going to talk about reports.
So you had all received an email from Anna about the multiple reports that we get as a committee. They're just starting. Watch out for many, many more that will come to your email. Like I said, we post all those reports on the committee materials page. And one thing that was started last session was what we informally call book reports, but it's a review of the reports that the committee has received. And in the past, and I think that this is the plan for this session as well, members of the committee will volunteer to summarize the reports for the committee members, so that not everybody needs to read every single page that comes through your inbox. So the goal of it is to summarize, not read the report to the committee, provide some background on the topic briefly, particularly if the report is pursuant to recent legislation or some kind of short-term project, and to have a discussion about what the next legislative steps would be, if any, as a result of the information contained in that report. This can be pretty quick. I don't think that there's an actual time limit as we had discussed, but it also doesn't have to be anything fancy like Representative Jaffner's drinking water report, which was incredibly memorable and wonderful, but perhaps set the bar way too high for everybody in presenting their reports. But if I don't know if we'll have time today. Senator Claxton had mentioned he might go first to model what book reports look like for you. But if you have any questions as you're doing your review, please let us know.
Yeah, we didn't want Representative Javner to go first on the book reports because none of us could compete or meet the bar after that. She had us all in stitches in the committee hearing with mostly a straight face. I was impressed.
I also want to mention that we schedule those book reports. We're obviously taking you by surprise with Senator Claxton today, but we will not take you by surprise to present your reports. We do put them on the schedule also so that the public knows that maybe not the specificity of the reports, but that the committee will be doing book reports. But I just didn't want you to think, oh, am I supposed to do my report today? Only Senator Claxton is doing a report today.
And we also give people the opportunity to choose an area that they're interested in. And there'll be plenty of opportunities because we get lots and dozens of reports in the course of a cycle. Any questions? Okay. So Erin, are you going to talk about Zoom docs?
Sure. When on the committee materials website, in addition to the other orientation materials we've posted under that list of orientation materials, is some overview, not quite training, but a little bit of how to or overview about using Zoom during committee meetings. There are two different platforms that will happen, but for in general, for committee members' purposes, accessing the meeting should be exactly the same. You're just clicking on the link. For public hearings, it's a webinar format, which involves a little bit different functionality on the part of the chairs and the clerk than it would for a regular meeting setup like this. But for a regular member, it should just be a link to join. And if you'd like to peruse those more at your leisure, you're welcome to. I wasn't planning on going through all of them. And also Senator Claxton previewed some of the basic training on using Zoom at the beginning of our meeting about changing your name to reflect your actual name and raise hand function. And so those are functions that I think only Carrie, our clerk, has been officially trained on. So she would be a better person probably than us to ask if you have questions about using Zoom, although we are happy to try to help if we are able to. But Anna and I may quickly get out of our depth with technical support. The other thing that I forgot to mention that's on the committee page is policies governing our committee work that have been also mentioned this morning. We have the Legislative Council's COVID-19 prevention policy that's posted there, and also the latest letter from the presiding officers relating to the conduct of committee work for your reference. We're not today going to be looking at model rules for the committee and adopting those rules, but when we do, those finalized rules will also be under that tab. And that's all I have. I don't know if Anna or Luke needs to add anything.
Anna wanted to ask that all technical and Zoom questions go to Erin.
And I've delegated that to Carrie.
All right. Carrie's all over it. Yeah. Any questions or comments to this point in our agenda? Okay. Then are you done with what you wanted to do, Erin and Anna? Okay. as I said.
We do just want to make sure that before you end today, Kerry is sending out the updated schedule that will have which officers are coming on Thursday. And that's ready to go, and she'll send that as soon as we've finished meeting. She just, she's concentrating on this at the moment. We think that you will know that the public hearing for the budget the supplemental budget for this committee is on Tuesday. So I'm assuming you will also talk about attendance for that. My understanding from Maureen is that whoever wishes to be present will also get the same invitation that the appropriations members will get.
Okay.
And then next week we will have some more DHHS orientation as well as the budget.
And the decision as to who goes to AFA hasn't been made yet, because we want to meet with the leads and get their feedback about the various options of doing that. The options being either to send a small group, as small as 2, or to have the whole committee go and use that as a learning experience about the budget process. So we'll talk with Senator Moore and Representative Javner about next steps, and then we'll let you know as soon as we can. Yes, Senator Moore, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had just one question. Now, when we're talking about the public hearing and appropriations on Tuesday, will the commissioner actually be presenting her supplemental budget to the Appropriations Committee before the public hearing or at the beginning of the public hearing? Is that how that's going to work?
I don't know that for sure, but I would assume so. But it is virtually. You mean
right, I realize
virtually,
that.
yeah.
I understand that. But I mean, I'm just trying to think about that. Last year is, of course, I'm remembering the biennial, and it was a long and drawn out process. But I didn't know if the commissioner would be going line by line by line on the supplemental budget prior to the public hearing.
I don't know the answer to that, Senator.
Okay.
I'll ask the chair.
Okay.
And let you know.
That way we can decide, because if that's the case, that might be a good learning opportunity for all of us. But
Okay.
trying to make that decision, I wasn't sure, Senator Clapton.
Okay, I will get in touch with the chair of AFA and find out what the format is, or Maureen,
Right.
who would know too. But I will share that information with the committee as soon as I get an answer,
Thank you.
which should be shortly. Any other comments or concerns? I want to thank Anna for working hard or intentionally trying to slow down her presentations. Anna can talk faster than I can listen sometimes. And when she gets on a roll, I sometimes get lost. So thank you for that. And the other resource we have to do our jobs as legislators that I want to mention is the Law Library. It's an incredible resource. When I first contacted them 2 years ago and said, what the hell does SLG do? About 75 minutes later, they sent me 4 years worth of bill titles and summaries. I was astounded and have continued to use them frequently. They're a great resource for, has this bill been considered before? What are they doing in other states? Those kinds of things. They're a really valuable resource. I gave Carrie the option of saying something, and she opted to wait till we were closer to public hearings to go over some of the mechanics of running a Zoom meeting. Am I still right about that, Carrie? Okay, all right. And those are the things that I wanted to hit. I will do my first book report as long as there's nothing else there. Luke, you're an incredibly precious resource this time of year. So if you want to drop off, we won't take it personally. Luke has his hands full with the budget stuff that's going on now. So one of the reports is forwarded to us on an annual basis is from the Child Development Services. They're a semi-independent organization with a separate funding stream, independent of the budget, but they're required to report to the legislature based on 5 MRSA section 12023. I did not look that up. And this report came in February a year ago, and we're just clearing it off the desk. They're required to report expenditures greater than $10,000, and contributions greater than 1,000, which they have done. And they're also required to report policy changes, and there were none. So that is as short a book report as you can get. But it's the process of assuring that what's legislated gets some follow-up. So somebody's looked at this, the report, somebody has shared the major contact, and then decided that nothing needs to be done in follow-up. So that's really the goal of the book reports, is a brief description about why there's a report, what the intent was, and whether you have any recommendations based on your reading that either the whole committee consider it or that you have a specific piece of legislation you want to introduce in response to that, or some follow-up questions. Is that an accurate summary of how we've used book reports in the past, Senator Moore, Representative Meyer, Representative Jabner? Any other comments?
The only other comment that I would make is that sometimes, just because I like to look at it, I always try to point out where we might find it on our committee page itself. So that way, if somebody wants to kind of follow along or just kind of review the executive summary, that helped me, when I was trying to follow along with a book report.
Okay, so can somebody share their screen, either Aaron and Anna, and walk us to those sites? Because this is a 129 report,
Right.
not a 130 report. It was left over from last year.
Anna, are you pulling it up, or do you want me to?
I can if you'd like.
Okay.
Just give me a
Most of the
second here.
reports are a little bit more substantial than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to do some doc searching to find it using the 129.
Yeah,
But-
I'm looking for it now.
Yeah, but if you can just show us where the 130th reports will reside, that'd be a good start.
Well, Erin showed that originally, but sorry, Child Development Services, where are you? Okay.
We could do that at the start of the session, our next session on Thursday, just if we
It's
want.
okay. No, I'm here.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's February.
Okay.
The other
So,
thing we're going to do to fill, to help, just to fill a little time, Anna, sorry, was
no, go ahead.
when we have that spreadsheet that our researcher helps create for us, the name of the report will be a hyperlink to where it is on the website. So hopefully going forward, you won't have to, especially for the older reports, need to search for them.
So this is, as Senator Claxton mentioned, this is one from the 129th. So you can, hopefully you can see my cursor is like right in the middle of the page here on the Child Development Services annual report, but it is part of this 129th legislature committee materials. So now you can see that we're not listing them that same clumsy way anymore. So as Erin mentioned before, these are the new ones, but you will still have these ones left over from the 129th that not all of them, but a number of them were not yet reviewed. So we've got pretty good response from the committee. I think there's only 2 or 3 that are not signed up for at this point. That didn't quite come out right. So most of them have been taken at the moment, including, Senator Moore taking the one yesterday that before it even got on the chart. So that was very impressive. So for a little while, we're going to have these 129th ones kind of hanging out there. But once all of those are done, then it will be simpler because we'll only have the ones that are on this link and on one chart. At the moment, we're sort of operating with 2 charts, which is kind of a pain. So
This is a good opportunity for legislators to go back and see what the impact of a bill they introduced that included a report, what the impact of that is. So I introduced the bill last time to look for a certain kind of hospitalization facility. And so I'll be presenting that report in follow-up one of these days when it gets scheduled. But it's a good way to see what the impact of your legislation is if it involved a report.
Right. And the department have been also quite good about doing reports for letters, which they're not really statutorily required to do. They could ignore them if they choose. But a number of the reports have come from letters as well. But I do just want to mention, since I've got an opportunity to do this, for example, with the report you were talking about, Senator Claxton, the one on the acute care.
Yeah, long-term acute care.
That is a one-time report that had authority to report out legislation to the 129th. So if you are in a position where you have one of those reports and you want to report out legislation, you will need a joint order, and we'll talk more about all of that later on when we do more orientation about different kinds of bills. But that's a wrinkle we don't normally have.
Right. Thank you. Any questions about content so far? Anybody want to comment about a first morning session? I don't see a lot of people who want to have anything to say. I'm sure that will change, and which is fine. So I think what we'll do, the chairs and leads. Oh yes, Representative Craven, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did have my hand up. I was practicing. I forgot to do that the last time I had a question because, I'm not used to, that was one of the mistakes we were allowed, right?
Absolutely. And it's not really a mistake. Okay, good.
Yeah. Thank you all very much for, especially staff, for all the work you've been doing, and just training us all to to this learning curve that we're not used to, and making things really easy and understandable. And I know that it's been an awful lot of work behind the scenes, and so I really appreciate that. And thank you to our chairs as well.
Any other comments? I think what'll happen at this point is the chairs and leads are going to stay on the call. Carrie, is that the right? And we're going to play around with some of the Zoom function to get ready for public hearings. So we're going to do a little bit of messing about. You all can go on and do what you want, or you can watch us make mistakes. If you have other things to do with your life, we'll totally understand that. But we want to get ready for, as we get prepped for public hearings. So our next session is Thursday, 9 o'clock. I'm going to try and be on time for the start sessions. The Tuesday that we go to AFA will depend a little bit when we go. Will depend when we join that meeting. Will be dependent upon how long anything happens in their work before. But I think we're the first item. So
we're the whole day.
The whole day. So in this case, we don't have to worry about that. But there's any number of other instances in AFA when we get into the big budget where they're going to be considering something between 8 and 10, and we're scheduled for 10 and actually join them at 11 or 12 or 2. So just a heads up about that. But we'll try and make sure that every week everybody gets calendars of what's going to happen in the next week on HHS. So welcome again to the first term legislators. I hope you find it anywhere near as satisfying and interesting as I did last cycle. Please feel free to reach out to any of the chairs or leads on any of the questions you have. And for now, anything else that you wanted to say, Representative Myers? No.
I do want to reiterate that there are no dumb questions, that being a first term legislator is like drinking out of the fire hose. There's a lot of information that comes down the pike, fast and furious. Please reach out and ask.
And our next session on Thursday will be some more of the orientation to the department and answer any questions that got raised today that weren't answered, but I can't think of any of those. So that's it. You survived your first session of the HHS committee, and congratulations. In the old model, we would have given everybody a gold star, but we're not doing that this year. So I know. We'll have to save them up. So thank you. And I'll ask Senator Moore, Representative Javner, and Representative Myers to stay on the phone with Carrie, and we'll do some messing about. Thank you all.